and record it. And then I'll begin the presentation. So I'm just going to pin myself as well. So then we can make sure you get me in my screen. There we are. And as I said, I won't necessarily see the chat. So if you are desperate to ask a question, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself. It's casual and cozy here, so I don't mind. And let me begin and share my screen with you all. There we go. Oh, hang on, it's not letting me share. Oh, there we go. So we're going to be talking today about relaxation and food energetics. I did mention a little bit about it yesterday, but not a whole lot, not in depth. So, and because we have quite a few people who weren't here yesterday, I will run through my introduction. I was wondering if there weren't anybody new, then I would skip that slide, but I will briefly say that. You'll see a lot of artichoke photos, by the way, and my logo as well. That is a fantastic functional food in Chinese medicine, and it's very good for the liver qi. And I'm a double wood element, so, and I love artichokes, so that's why you'll see artichokes and green and that kind of thing. So welcome to today's session. My name is Kimberly, and I'm currently sitting in Sydney, Australia. However, I was living in Asia and particularly spent a lot of time in China, Thailand and Japan prior to 2019. So I've been working in food, nutrition, both Western nutrition and Chinese medicine for over 12 years as a coach, as a nutrition and wellness coach. But I focus a lot on the 5 elements. So if people come to me for a Western nutrition problem, I'm happy to talk about it. But I inevitably bring them into 5 elements and the energies and emotions and food and how we can shift things from our daily food and meals. Yeah, so I was living in China for a long time, and I had a health food shop and studied with a TCM doctor. I am not an acupuncturist or a TCM doctor or a medical doctor, but I work alongside them very well to help people in between their sessions of acupuncture or herbs or moxa or massage or whatever it may be. I also have 2 books, and I teach yin yoga on the side just for fun because I love it. As well as some nidra, sound healing. And I really love working with the emotions and anything energy, and food is energy, as you'll see or learn or dive deeper into. Yesterday, we had quite a lot of people who enjoyed cooking. So I'm also very curious later, to see if the group tonight is into cooking or not. And if anyone reads Chinese, this is the character for qi, or ki, or prana, or however you would like to pronounce it. And I'm very big on food sovereignty, so taking power back in to your body and health using food, emotions, and energy medicine. So what we're going to be going through today is 3 topics. So I'll mention the 5 elements in relaxation, a little bit of an introduction to food energetics. With the Chinese medicine lens, there are other lenses that you can use, and I weave together Western nutrition, Chinese medicine, something called the energetics of food or energetic nutrition, and something I term spiritual nutrition, which is not religious, it's just the way that you can connect to all the layers of your body and your energy bodies as well. And then we'll be talking quite a bit about food therapy for digestion and relaxation. So we're going to be talking a lot about the earth element. And I know you're all yin yogis, so you're hopefully, if not definitely, familiar with the spleen, the stomach, and all the digestive organs, which really is the core of our being and our ability or capacity to relax. So that's what we're going to be covering. So the 5 elements and relaxation, as I said, I'm very biased to green. If you'd like to find out your predominant elements, we can talk about that separately, but I'm a double wood out of 3. So everything is green. So in the chat, I would love to know if you're a teacher or a student, just so I can structure a little bit more of the conversation when I'm talking to you, especially about the energy of food tonight. Because I know some teachers like to go a little bit more into the 5 elements and some don't. So we've got about half. And Solaki yoga likes to cook. Excellent. The people that like to cook or hate cooking always make themselves known. Excellent. Yeah, perfect. So lots of teachers and lots of students. Good. So I'm about half. Yin student, amateur chef. Oh, there we go. Okay. Love it. Wonderful. Good. Okay. Thanks for sharing. So about half. So I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and relaxed. For those that are on their video, sorry, with their videos off, you might be lying in your bed. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can be in your pajamas. And I would like you to just think about, you don't have to share. Otherwise, we might get a lot of chocolate cake and cacao brownies or something. But what is your favorite comfort food and or dessert? For some people, it might be pasta. For some people, it might be chocolate cake. So just think about what is your favorite comfort food and dessert. And I put herbal tea because some people actually don't like dessert. There are people, I know for most people it's a bit odd, but there are people who don't like dessert. So yeah, maybe it's a herbal tea or whatever helps you relax and unwind. So we've got chocolate, pasta, tiramisu, curry, dried fruits, chocolate. Yeah. And there's a reason why I asked this question. There's a reason why all of you are answering about relaxing foods and the energy of relaxing foods. So a lot of you got sweet. I asked for desserts, of course, but also chocolate and curry and fruit and spice. They're all very yin or relaxing or expanding and softening. So yeah, that's good. If anybody had written something salty, I would be very surprised because salty foods and the salt flavor actually makes us contract, not in a good or bad way. It's just the energy of that food. So you've answered beautifully in that sharing. So yeah, cacao, even chaga, all the mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, normal mushrooms, stir-fried mushrooms, they're all beautifully yin nourishing and they help us relax. Chocolate definitely, curry and spices definitely. And someone had cheese, French cheese. Yeah, that's actually not necessarily so yin. Some dairy is, milk and yogurt is more, but anyway, great. Okay, so there are lots of foods that help us relax and or comfort foods. So definitely pasta is, and everything in that starchy, dense, nourishing, satiating, satisfying texture, which we'll talk about today as well, is there for a reason. And we're really focusing predominantly on the earth element today. So I showed this, my favorite chart yesterday, and I'll run through it very briefly in terms of the energy. So starting at the left, we have this upward energy of spring. It's also the energy of the morning and not so relaxing. And remember, I was just mentioning, I have a double wood. So I'm a very energizing, uplifting person. I like to rush and move and do things. And when I first came to yin yoga, I actually hated it. I thought it was the silliest thing. I thought, this is ridiculous. It's so slow. And then I didn't enjoy it because the poses were so long. And I'm sure a lot of you can identify with this, especially if you're a wood or a fire element person. But of course, like all of us, I assume that we all left the class feeling, oh, that was really good and I need more of it. And then you get hooked on yin. So what yin yoga does as an energy is over in the earth or the late summer element. And it's very balancing, gathering. And then it has a bit of this beautiful downward, inward energy, of course, and downward, straight down or spiraling down, which is the water element, the winter energy. So that's where yin in anything sits, yeah? Yin in terms of the afternoon, the evening, time of the day. So if we start to get this feeling, this texture, this taste of what is calming, quietening inward energies, not just on the mat, but in our kitchen, then we want to start to see food in this cycle and these arrows as well. And yesterday I showed a lot of foods. Well, I showed foods for each category. So if you are new today, I'm not going to be running through all of them. I'm really focusing on the earth element today. But we had, I'll give you some examples. We had, when you want some uplift of energy, over on the left in the wood and the spring element, you would have things like sprouts, asparagus, and leeks. And then I mentioned yesterday as well, over on the earth element, when you want to ground or gather your energy and feel satiated or satisfied, to have things like pumpkin, beans, lentils, and root vegetables as well. So that's just to give you this example. And then a lot of you mentioned like chocolate and spice and curry. That actually fits in the fire element. It allows you to expand, possibly sweat as well, which is a good release of heat out of the body. So there's a reason why certain foods have that certain energy to help us, either in the time of the day or the climate that we're living in, and or the season as well. So as I said, we're going to be focusing on here, which is in the time of the day cycle. It's afternoon tea time. So I don't know if you guys eat afternoon tea. I don't necessarily, but it's a wonderful time to have a snack. And there's a reason why our blood sugar dips in the afternoon, depending what you ate for lunch, of course. But it is a time to slow down, to unwind, and to have a little sweet treat. It might be something super healthy, like a healthy raw, I don't know, cacao brownie, or a muffin, or a nice bit of chocolate, or pudding, or fruit, or something really unhealthy. Doesn't matter, donuts or whatever, doesn't matter. I don't judge. There's no guilt with food and me. So eat whatever you want, but pay attention to why you're craving it. So we're going to be talking about this beautiful orange circle here today. It's when the energy is coming down from the peak of the day at midday, and when a lot of people, depending which part of the world, you might have a nap, lucky you. We're not nappers in Australia, but I know some people watching might be from cultures where a nap is encouraged, and there's actually a really good reason for that. But yeah, also you can have a sweet tea or a sweet snack to help calm you down as well. So in terms of living more yin, and this actually is coming, these points are coming out of a course that I'm writing about relaxation and food therapy. So, and I know this is not new for you guys because you're all yin yogis, students or teachers. So making time for slowing down is really important. Living with more quietude and peace, regulating your nervous system, weaving in food therapy to support relaxation and calm. So that's what I'm hoping to uncover a little bit for you today. Understanding the relationship as well between the 5 elements. So if you're getting too stimulated, I'm just going to go back up here. So if you're getting too excitable, like myself, because you have a lot of upward energy, could be your liver, could be your heart up in the fire element. You could be very agitated, having this chaotic energy, stress. So it can be really hard to calm down. Sorry, here we go. It can be very hard to calm down, to get to that earth element if you're living in the energies of wood and fire, or spring and summer the whole time, no matter what season you're in. It's just based on your personality and how you react to the external energies and environment that you're in. Living more yin, ideally, if you get there, would see you more aligned, calm, and grounded as well. And I'm always encouraging people to embody, live, and breathe more yin, whatever that means, whether it's doing more yin yoga, whether it's qigong or breathing or meditating, or eating foods to help calm us down. So I just mentioned these actually. Sleep is another one that I didn't just say as well. So having good sleep is going to be really important, so that you're not having blood sugar irregularities throughout the day, or you're not just exhausted and wearing yourself out. Because if you're tired, it's actually also really hard to get the real benefits from yin yoga if you just go on the mat and either fall asleep or get very agitated. I see both extremes of that as well. Emotional, I'm not going to talk too much about emotions. I know we've had some excellent speakers, Sean and Annie, later today talking about that. But emotions and food and energy are, they're hand in hand, if not a huge overlap. So you might feel yourself in this earth element very anxious or overwhelmed all the time. But having a strong earth element in terms of the organs of the spleen and the stomach can really strengthen that and make you less sensitive. Not that being sensitive is a bad thing, but just having a really strong organ energy to manage those emotions when they come up. And all the foods that I talk about today can help you with that as well. I see that a lot in my coaching clients as well. When we strengthen the earth element, all the other elements and energies can come back into balance as well. And you'll be able to come back into balance into your body, into alignment. Your digestion will be better as well. I'm sure a lot of you are resonating with this. No matter how long you've practiced yin, it has definitely brought this beautiful calm energy into your meridians, your nervous system, your organs, and your body as well. And of course, you can do this by applying food therapy and energetics in your kitchen. So moving on, the earth element, as I mentioned, is where it's at. When we talk about food energetics in relation to calming down or relaxing, is anyone, I'll stop and ask another question because I love questions. I'm getting distracted by the chat. Lemon balm tea, spicy tea, cinnamon. I love cardamom too. Yes. Oh, hello, Carol from Australia. Yeah, but it's not a cultural thing. We don't nap like siesta, but we should really. So I was going to ask in the chat, does anyone find themselves having difficulties relaxing when they're doing yin yoga or anything slow? And don't answer if you're a real kapha, earthy, metal person who just absolutely loves to just sit and look inward and do nothing. Because people like me, it's very hard I don't sit on sofas. I just don't understand sitting on sofa and doing nothing. I've got too much wood energy in me. So is anyone, like me? Yep, Alexandra. So where it's a struggle to just sit and do nothing, or sit and do yin, or meditate, or I don't know, watch TV or sit on a beach for too long. I mean, I can do it for a little while and I'm definitely getting better at it, but I just get more ideas when I'm doing these things. Excellent. Work in progress. Absolutely. Me too. You do have times when you can't do yin yoga because you're not calm enough. Great. That's good. Yes, fine with yin yoga, but not other things. Absolutely. So yin yoga is a fine art, as we all know. It's such a beautiful zone to be in, which is why myself, and I'm sure many people here as well, love it. And when I first did yin, or in the first few months when I did yin, I really thought the whole world needs more yin. And then I realized not everyone can do quiet things, because they're either stimulated in their nervous system, and or their heart, the fire energy, and or the liver. So and I'm not talking about the deeper level where we get on the mat, we do yin, and then things come up. I'm just talking about that first step of why people say they can't do yin, or they can't meditate or be quiet or still. It could be their head, it could be their nervous system. I mentioned very briefly yesterday about our consciousness, which is in our blood. So if our blood is overheated or chaotic, if we have any TCM practitioners in the chat today, they would know, when you're taking your pulse, like there's a lot going on for us to have difficulty in calming down. I touched a little bit on that yesterday as well, all these external factors, social factors, social media, stimuli, yeah? And then in terms of food, a lot of the foods that stimulate us, wasn't going to mention this today, but can include some of those things that people mentioned. So it could be chocolate for some people. The caffeine of any kind can stimulate us as well. So we actually want to quieten our food and our palate and the flavors and the types of foods that we're consuming if we're struggling, because that can really help. So what does that include? Let's dive into that. So the earth element, when in balance, you're going to feel calm, nurtured, or have a nurturing capacity, very grounded. So pretty much in the digestive organs and the lower half of your body. You're not up in your head too much. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the Ayurvedic terms of vata. Yeah, vata being up here in the head. We don't have those terms, but in Chinese medicine, but we have similar terms, and we use the 5 elements. So those energy arrows that I showed you before, to me, are a wonderful representation of when we're up too much. We haven't got the core, the middle ground, calm and balanced. And then definitely a lot of people are lacking this grounded energy in the lower half of the body. But I'll talk about that today in terms of the energetics. We're also able to receive and nurture and love ourselves, not only giving it. So if you resonate with giving and caring a lot, you might actually be a predominant earth element person, which is even harder for people that aren't earth elements to look after themselves. So you get too caught up in other people. That also doesn't allow you to relax when you're taking time for yourself. Nourishing yourself is really important as well, but not overeating. So overeating can cause stress and chaos to the body, because the poor spleen and all the intestines and digestive system are overwhelmed and overburdened themselves. When you're in balance, when your spleen, stomach, and earth element are in balance, then you're also not prone to being overwhelmed, procrastinating, and you can manage time well. Good appetite is a really good sign of having a strong earth element, as is digestion and bowel movements, healthy body weight, good work-life balance, and ability to focus, study, and think clearly, which is the spleen. And in the West, we have this gut-brain connection that's, I would probably say in the last 5 or 6 years, has become really popular. And I always think it's funny when Western nutrition catches up on Chinese medicine, because in Chinese medicine, the spleen and the heart brain and the gut brain is very much a thing. And the role of that is very important into the way we think. And also another term from Western nutrition would be things like brain fog. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but where we have clouded thinking and we wake up unable to focus. That's also this earth element in Chinese medicine. So it could be that the spleen's not strong. It could be that there's a lot of dampness in the spleen and or digestive system. Yeah, so I actually think, and I'm totally biased, that Chinese medicine or Oriental medicine, as I mentioned yesterday, has a lot to offer, simply by understanding cycles and the elements and how things work and the energy of each element, and also the food that we eat. So yeah, why are there so many digestion issues, earth element issues? Inability to relax is something I see, because people want to, they inherently want to come and do yin yoga, or they want to slow down or meditate or sleep better or rest better and not have digestive issues, not have heart palpitations, not have dizziness and headaches and too much going on in the head. But we are all, to some differing degrees, exposed to this external stimulus, mental thinking. Thinking is a huge one. Thinking actually takes a lot of energy from us. And I encourage people to always look at where their energy is going and what they're getting energy from. And we need the building blocks or our fuel from food to allow us to think and do and take action in our lives. And a lot of people, the biggest problem I see, if I had to pick one, is actually people don't eat enough good quality nutrient dense food. Most people just don't eat enough. They're eating a lot of snacks or salads or very light foods, or meat or whatever. It's not about being meat or vegetarian eater. They just don't eat enough food, and predominantly earth element foods. I think there's been a big misconception in carbohydrates, and when we really need them. And if you look at the 5 elements context in Chinese medicine, it's all about like really nourishing foods that I'm going to talk about today. But you can see pumpkins here, for example, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, good breads. We're missing this nourishment. A lot of us, we're eating a lot of the extremes, like, you know, meat and salad, or very salty and very sweet foods, but none of this balanced food. And all the balanced food is underneath the earth element list. I'm going to show you that list, which I did show yesterday as well. We also live very fast-paced lives. We're exposed to lots of different types of stress, anxiety. Breath is a huge thing as well. A lot of us don't breathe properly for many different reasons. And the earth element is also a lot to do with overthinking and worry. But in my opinion, it's hard to know, does the worry or overthinking come first, or does the imbalance in your energy and your spleen come first, right? So we have to look at both sides. And I'm not going to spend too much talking about dampness. If anybody is interested, I have a whole ebook on dampness. I actually think it's one of the biggest problems in human health, and it's not in Western nutrition. And dampness, very briefly, is a spleen, predominantly a spleen issue. It can come up to the lungs, but it's like living in a sauna. A steam room. It's like your spleen is in this constant over humid environment, and a lot of food allergies, food sensitivities, IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea, in my opinion, and most TCM doctors would agree that there's a lot of sugar, white flour products, dairy, cold things like ice cream. Unfortunately, bananas and mangoes too are very damp. So I'm not saying don't eat them. I'm just saying if you have a damp condition or constitution, or you've been told by a TCM doctor, then this is something to consider, because this all impacts the earth element, the spleen and the stomach. Yeah, I don't want to, that's a whole another topic itself. So most people, to summarize this section, most people do not actually have the ability or nervous system regulation or spleen function to relax. The kidneys and adrenals might get involved. So if you're really busy and overworked yourself, and you have varying degrees of adrenal fatigue or exhaustion, you're not going to be able to calm and ground and be all zen like on the yoga mat, because you're wired. You're literally wired in the nervous system, in the blood and in the organs. And a lot of people suffering from this condition would be living in their head. There's also a lot of tension, whether it's you can feel it or it's there in the body, and you just actually push through it. Because I see people all the time and they'll be like, no, I'm good, I'm relaxed. And you might touch their body, or you might ask them questions, or you might get them into a pose. And then when you see that tension melt, you're like, oh, wow, they were holding a lot of emotions usually, but a lot of physical tension as well. So it's not always the wood and the fire elements, but that's definitely what drives a lot of that energy to start with. And it affects every part of us in the body. So I'm just going to quickly get the chat. Okay, I'll answer this question because it's on dampness before we move on. Ruby says, if you have high pitta, are you okay with damp foods? I can't answer that, Ruby, because pitta doesn't equal dampness. So I'm familiar with the 3 doshas. And dampness is not a big thing in Ayurveda, as far as I'm aware of, as an actual external pathogenic factor that we call. So it really depends on the individual. So because you are pitta, I can't say you can or can't eat dampness. It would depend on how strong your spleen is, and if you have any symptoms of dampness, which include diarrhea, loose bowels, edema or swelling in the bottom half, like of your ankles, your legs. Yeah, so I understand your question, and just by having a high metabolism doesn't mean you don't have dampness, if that makes sense. Because if you're sweating it all out and your spleen, your digestion is strong, you might not have a lot of problem. The other thing with dampness is the environment that you live in. So if you live in a very hot tropical place, for example, Thailand, and you get monsoon rains and it's always very humid all year round, then you just have more dampness around you. I've been to Iceland, and I felt Iceland in summer was incredibly damp. There's just a lot of moisture. It's not bad or good, but for me, it doesn't agree with my stomach so well, having damp external environment and then eating damp foods. There are foods that you can eat that exacerbate or make the dampness for a damp person worse. And there's foods you can take to relieve the dampness. But yeah. Pumpkin is great all winter. Is there any spring, summer alternatives? Let me ask that. Richard, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different foods for the earth element in a moment. So I will answer that as we go, if that's all right, because I want to dive into all the foods, but I'm loving all the questions. So if I don't answer that specifically, Richard, hold me to it at the end, but I think I'll be able to in the next few slides. So in terms of food energetics, this is my definition and experience with it, and trying to elaborate on what that means. Because most people, I think you guys are the right crowd to understand that food is energy, but a lot of people that I work with outside of a yoga or a yin yoga space kind of look at me funny when I say food energetics or the energy of food. They inherently know, as humans, we know we're all energy. Food obviously is energy too. So in terms of defining it though, I would say it's understanding the way food is grown. So the climate you're in and it's grown in, the direction. So the arrows that I showed you apply to food as well. So asparagus and leeks grow straight up. Carrots and parsnips and radish grow straight down. Root vegetables, yeah. Burdock is a great one too, goes straight down. So, and everything in between. So that's a nice key to understanding the energy of food at a simple level. Understanding the type of food it is as well, and the energy that it carries. So for example, whole grains like black rice or buckwheat or oats is a very different energy to meat. And within each category, you can apply the 5 elements to it as well. Vegetables, sea vegetables as well. They're all different foods and can give us different nutrients, different minerals, and different energies as well. I mentioned briefly yesterday, so things like salad are very open and expansive. They're very light. And what would be a nice dense food, things like lamb would be a very heavy food. Again, not good or bad about salad or lamb, but they just have different energies and a good function for different seasons and different bodies. For me, food energetics also involves learning about the functional properties of the food. So, for example, carrots are really good for the small intestine in Chinese medicine. They just are. They're also very good because they're sweet. So they, and the orange color, so they fit more into the earth element. So from a Western nutrition, from a Chinese medicine nutritional point of view, the word functional food is slightly different. We definitely look more at the energy of the food or which organs or elements it helps in Chinese medicine. And then we touched a little bit on the cooking styles. I'm going to mention them again today because that can really change the energy of your food. So I used the example of a carrot yesterday, so I'll stick with the carrot. So if you eat a carrot that's raw, or if you steam it, or saute it, or stir fry it, or put it in a soup, or you bake it, or you deep fry it, yeah, you're adding more heat and more duration in cooking. So that changes the energy and the flavor of the carrot. So you can use cooking styles to help relax you as well. And I really encourage everyone to feel. The word feeling here is in capitals for a reason. I want everyone to start feeling what foods you're eating and the effect on you immediately, or even an hour after, or even the day after, and how you feel with different foods in different seasons as well. So this is just a little reminder with some examples. Spring is all about light leafy greens, sprouts, Asian greens or more Western greens, spring onions, asparagus, as I mentioned. I'm going to jump over to late summer because that's where we're going to focus today. So anything round and ground. You may or may not have heard that term, but I use it a lot. So the earth element is all about round vegetables, like physically like an onion or a cabbage, and ground vegetables. You can start incorporating root vegetables in late summer and or when you need this energy. So because most of you are in the Northern Hemisphere, you're in winter or moving out of winter towards spring. But if you need grounding, calming, sweet vegetables because you're really stressed or going through a really busy week or month at work, or you've got a project or whatever, start to incorporate more of these earth element foods because that will help with your energy in terms of calming and grounding. So the energetics of food, I'm going to switch gears to, this is pretty much in every Chinese medicine or nutrition book. They have these 6 points. I'm not going to go in depth because it's about half a textbook or maybe 1/3 of a textbook, but I will just touch on them to give you a different perspective on nutrition and food, and an understanding of what in Chinese medicine the energy or the energetics of food means. So the first one is this temperature quality of food. It doesn't necessarily mean whether you put it in the oven or eat it raw. It's the actual inherent quality or thermal temperature or thermal quality of the food. So for example, we've got cold, cooling, neutral, warming, hot. I'll give you an example of each. So I'll start with cold. Watermelon and persimmons. Persimmons are an orange fruit, very, very sweet. If you're not an English speaker and you're not sure what a persimmon is, please Google it or look it up, because it's a funny word. But watermelon, everyone knows. So that's cold. Again, not if you eat it in the fridge or out raw. It's just, it is a cold fruit. When it enters the body and it cools the body down, it's why we eat it in summer. A cooling food would be cucumber and celery. They have a cooling effect on the organs and the body. A neutral food would be something like potatoes, including sweet potatoes and purple potatoes and any other color potatoes. And a warming food would be beef, and a hot food would be lamb. So that means that they warm us up and or make us really hot. If you're vegetarian or vegan, then there are other foods that can do that. But for the meat eaters, that's in Chinese medicine, lamb is one of the inherently hottest food. So there's the energy of temperature of the food. And then we can, of course, talk about cooking as well in a moment. The second point is, which is not found so much in Western nutrition, is this idea of building and clearing. Clearing, yes, to some extent. We talk a lot about detox, and detox is an overused word in my opinion. I love the word detoxification, but I'm not a fan of the word detox because it's a little bit commercialized. People don't understand the full depth of clearing and detoxification or cleansing, in my opinion. You don't have to just drink juice. You can do that with a lot of functional foods that help clean the blood, to clean the organs. And that's where Chinese medicine and Chinese food therapy can be really exciting. So clearing, most people can understand, but this idea of building foods is something that nourishes the organs. So yes, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, we need them all. And I mentioned earlier that I don't think people actually eat enough building foods. So building the blood, people eat building muscle foods, right? Like too much protein. But building the spleen qi, or the energy of the spleen, is really important. And a lot of people don't have full capacity of their spleen energy, let's say, because they're eating a lot of cold foods, because they're not eating regular meal times. In Chinese medicine, we're big on breakfast. So if you find yourself very weak or tired or having digestive issues, I would highly recommend eating more of these building foods, which are all the earth element foods, and some good proteins and fats as well. In terms of the energetics of the foods, I'm going to talk a lot about the 5 flavors today, and the movements I mentioned in the arrows as a brief introduction for you already, but I need to get through this to talk about the earth element in particular. So I'll keep going. The energetics of food, the last point would be the climate and conditions. So this is an external factor, right? So outside of your house, outside of your window, what is the weather doing? Wind, cold, heat, damp, dryness, and fire. There's 6. You might have heard them depending on which yin training you do. Some people mention it. They'll talk about the 6 evils. I don't like the word evil, but anyway, there's these conditions that will impact, no matter what you eat, how you're feeling and what kinds of foods you might be craving. So if it's really cold where you are, you'll crave different foods to somebody who lives in tropical Singapore or Thailand where it's really hot. Yeah, so food can help us cope with these conditions in our climate as well. I see 2 things in the chat, but I'm just going to keep going if you don't mind, so that I can get through this, because I tend to distract myself. That's also my double wood element, by the way. I'm the branches of a tree. There's the branches of the tree and the trunk of the tree. I'm the double branches of the tree. So I go 10 directions in at once. It's the only way I know how. So back to the earth element. So the earth element receives all the nourishment you need, your spleen, your stomach, your pancreas. The spleen strengthening foods are really important. I've mentioned a few of them, and I'm going to show you a lot more in a moment. It's also supporting the whole digestive system, so the intestines and this idea of intestinal motility, power and absorption. So our intestines, small and large, they do this all day for us, yeah, or they should. And for a lot of people, they don't do this, the strong pumping action. They kind of get a little slow or a little lazy, or they have like leaky gut or irritable bowel syndrome. In Chinese medicine, it's all about strengthening the intestines and all the earth element. Then you can have good appetite. Then you don't suffer any of these things like bloating, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, indigestion, excess mucus, water retention, dampness. These are all signs in Chinese medicine that your earth element is a little bit unhappy or very unhappy. So if you are reading this and you're like, oh, I need to strengthen my digestion and or my spleen, stomach, then I highly recommend adopting some of these foods to help with that. I also want to bring in this idea of the flavors, because we're talking a lot about the sweet flavor, and the sweet flavor is the most relaxing flavor in the 5-element theory, possibly a little bit of the bitter and spice in summer to help you sweat and expand and release. But from the most part, people feel pretty happy when they have a nice dessert or a cup of hot chocolate or something sweet to eat. So I wanted to show you what the earth element is in another representation as well. So the top layer is things that grow up and out. Yeah, so a lot, it's all green as well, but is this upward energy, these upward arrows. The middle layer is round and ground vegetables, and the bottom is the roots. Yeah, we've got burdock, beetroot, parsnips, radish. So I want to encourage you to think about where the vegetables are growing, the sweetness of these ones in the middle. Onions are really sweet, especially if you cook them whole. So extracting that sweet flavor, and then you've got the roots that grow down. And if you take this idea of the energy of the food into the human body, you have the upward growing leeks that feed and nourish and have a good function to clear our upper half of the body. So our lungs, our respiratory system, gives us an uplift. We have these round and ground vegetables, these orange, lovely earth element in the, so I always think of our belly buttons is like the soil, is the earth element in nature, as in our bodies and our stomach as well. So we want to eat foods that grow on or below the ground, the round and ground vegetables, to nourish this, your earth element, your spleen and stomach. And then you'd have root vegetables to nourish the bottom half of your body. Yeah, your leg strengths, your muscle meridians, your reproductive organs, your base chakra, whatever you want to call it. That's where it is. Yeah, kidneys and below. So just another perspective you may or may not have seen about how the energy of food can be applied functionally. And this is a nice physical representation. I'm glad I don't have to draw this. If I was teaching in a whiteboard, I'm terrible at drawing. So there's a nice diagram for you there. So let's run through some food photos. These are all round or ground vegetables, root vegetables. There's a lot of pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and then other nice round kind of earth energy, relaxing quality include yams and taros. I'm going to show you some photos in a moment, don't worry. Millet, amaranth, whole grains, and oats. I mentioned some of these yesterday. So these all have a sweetness. If you think about whether you boil them or whether you roast them in the oven, parsnips, beetroot, carrots, sweet potato, onions, they extract this beautiful sweetness. Yeah, when you make pumpkin soup, like pumpkin soup is a classic relaxing food. I don't know many people who don't like pumpkin soup, and I don't know many people who don't feel good after having pumpkin soup. I'm going to talk about texture in a moment, but it's creamy, it's soft, it's sweet, it's mushy. It's like baby food is very relaxing for adults, that texture. And a lot of us don't eat enough of this texture and kind of food. Don't be scared of the concept of sugar in food, because we need sugar from carbohydrates to help us relax. And that's just purely an energetic thing. So we've got sweet potatoes, chickpeas, look how round they are and plump, and they're not so sweet, but they have a sweet quality to them in the earth element. Then we have here yams and taros on the right, and on the left, it's something called mountain yam. This might be a bit harder to find unless you have a Chinatown near you, but it's a very popular food in Japan, Korea, and China. Well, really a lot of different parts in Asia, but this and millet, if I had to pick, and pumpkin, 3 things that are good for the spleen and helping you to relax, I would put mountain yam, millet, and pumpkin. If you just added those as a start, your spleen will be so happy, and you'll find a different energy to your day as well. If you think about the texture of all these, how like creamy they are, how soft they are. I don't know if people enjoy yams. They're not the prettiest food, and I get it, but they're, if you think about, you can make them into sort of mashed potato kind of consistency. You boil them or steam them, mash them all up. It's great. And these are better than white potatoes for you. Before everyone goes, why don't we just eat more mashed potatoes? But mashed potatoes are relaxing too, but functionally and nutritionally and energetically, these ones have a lot more nutrient value than white potatoes. I know, I realize I'm dealing with most of you are in Europe and you love potatoes. I get it. I like them too. But if you can start to add some of these ones, these odd kind of yams and other creamy, starchy carbohydrates, it's going to be nutritionally better for you. And then here we have millet on the left and amaranth on the right. It kind of looks like quinoa, but it's not. It's actually a bit smaller too. Very, very nice whole grains under the earth element. I would put things like black rice under the water or winter element, and things like red rice under the fire element, purely because of color. Okay. And then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of sweeteners now. So we've got red dates, Chinese dates or jujube dates on the left, also very good for the blood, very good for the spleen. And then medjool dates on the right, which you're probably more familiar with, especially if you're into raw food or raw desserts. We use a lot of those in the cuisine. So looking at natural sweeteners. So I don't have a list for these. So if you've got a pen, I'm a big fan of fresh fruit, dried fruits, cooked fruits, like a cooked applesauce is so relaxing. You can add spices and herbs. Like the next slide here. So we've got cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom. You can get creative with root vegetables as well as a natural sweetness. You could put pumpkin puree or carrot juice, apple juice into a dessert recipe. So using the sweetness from fruits and vegetables. And then if you want to add like sweeteners that are more convenient, then I would highly recommend maple syrup, brown rice syrup, coconut sugar, or rapadura sugar. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I'll write that in the chat. Rapadura. You can look it up. Yeah, and I've mentioned apple juice, carrot juice, and pear juice. Very, very nice also for sweetener, natural sweetener as well. I'm just quickly, Richard, yes, definitely discuss. So I have a good suggestion for potatoes. If you want to, again, I'm not against white potatoes, but we can mix it up a little bit. So if you cook millet with cauliflower, yeah, millet, yellow millet with cauliflower, just boil the millet first, add chop the cauliflower in small pieces and then add them to the cooked millet. It'll cook pretty fast. And then you get your potato masher or a fork and you mash it up. It'll look like mashed potato, but it's a lot more nutrient dense. There's a lot more fiber in millet and cauliflower than there is in white potato as well. So that's what I would recommend. I've got cloves here, fennel seed and marjoram. These are just some ideas. I don't want to go too far into the herbs and spices, but for nourishing and warming the spleen, because the spleen likes to be warm as well. And the sweet flavor of marjoram. So we've got fresh marjoram here on the right, but you can put dried marjoram. I like to boil sweet potatoes, make a mash and put salt, pepper, of course, and a little dried marjoram. The spleen loves it, absolutely loves it. So again, it's not a sweet, you don't eat marjoram and think it's sweet, but it has a sweet, it's categorized as a sweet herb in Chinese medicine as well. I mentioned this yesterday, this exact slide, and today I've just put in orange the more relaxing ways of cooking. If you're looking at the energy of different foods. So we want to have things that are, if you're struggling and you're having a lot of tension, things that are a little bit more raw or steamed or blanching, which just means like dipped in hot water. Sauteing in water or like a healthy oil. Stir frying can be quite releasing and relaxing as well. And I mentioned this yesterday, this nishime, which is just about 2 inches of water, and then you layer some carrots, sweet potato, cabbage, pumpkin, to make like a lasagna almost. And then you put the lid on. So there's a lot of steam that comes from that very little bit of water. So it's not drowning the vegetables and boiling them. You're letting the steam cook the vegetables, but it's a lot more moist and comforting than just steaming the vegetables, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend experimenting with the way you're cooking your food, whether it's meat or tofu or doesn't matter. That will affect how it feels when you're eating it, but also how you feel after as well. So I mentioned this idea of flavor, these 5 flavors: sour, bitter, spicy, sweet, pungent, salty. So it's really all about this sweetness, and the sweetness is very nourishing and calming and soothing to the body and our organs. And then we've got texture. So this I didn't show yesterday because it's for today. Think about soft, creamy things. So whether it's fruit or vegetables or yams or pumpkin or I'm surprised I haven't said pudding yet, but there's a reason, because I'm going to show you lots of pudding photos in a moment. But pudding is something I don't think people in modern day times eat enough of. And it can be anything from like that creme brulee texture to yogurt, to fruit compote, to soya pudding, to what else? Dare I say bread and butter pudding or something of that texture. We eat a lot of dried, hard things. We don't eat enough soft, creamy things like mashed potato. Tofu is actually really relaxing as a food. The energy and quality of tofu is perfect, absolutely perfect. So I mentioned the energetics of cooking already, actually. So to give you the opposite, because we're always talking in yin and yang, the opposite of relaxing food would be grilling, baking, deep frying, barbecuing. If you're feeling really stressed, and I don't even put microwave on here, but it should be actually mentioned. If you're really stressed and up in your head and anxious all the time, the worst thing you can do is eat convenience foods, junk food, of course, or prepackaged frozen food that you pop in the microwave and it's just zapped. It's wrong energy, like literally the electricity, the energy is not good. You want something that's very soothing and calming. Again, whether it's meat or vegetables, doesn't matter. But this boiling, steaming, casserole, soups, that's another thing. I don't know that a lot of us in modern day culture eat enough soups. If you think about grandma, there was in every food culture, whether it's in Asia or in Europe or in South America or Australia or wherever, South Africa, I think we had South Africa in the house yesterday. We don't have enough puddings and soups. If we had more puddings and soups, in my opinion, we'd all be happier and more relaxed. Like pumpkin soup. I don't know if we have many Americans in joining us today. I've got a photo of pumpkin pie, like really creamy, soft pie. It's just fantastic and so relaxing. So if you want to feel stressed, eat more of these. If you don't want to feel stressed, don't eat more of these. So I've got salt here. Well, you could think it's sugar too, but really both fit into this category. White salt, white sugar, not so good. Body doesn't like it, and it's too extreme. Lots of, I'm aware that we probably have a lot of Germans in the room, so pretzels and baked goods is a big thing, but too much is not relaxing at all. In the old days, bread was sourdough, well fermented and steamed. So if we just think about the way we've changed our food culture and how we cook foods and sell foods, we eat a lot of cookies, we eat a lot of potato chips. Very crunchy, very dry. Just purely think of the energy of it. I also have bread just to, this is very hard, it's very dense. I'm not saying don't eat them. I'm just saying be aware of when you eat them and how you're feeling. And maybe, in certain days when you want to relax more, have less of them. We also eat a lot of junk food and frozen foods. Energetically, not so good. There's no freshness, there's no aliveness, there's definitely no relaxing qualities, because they're either dried and processed, or they're frozen. They're not moving. But when we have a lot of fresh whole foods, that will really help. We also eat, oh, there's salt, sorry, that was sugar earlier. We also have a lot of coffee, chili, and fried foods. Also very chaotic energy, very stressful to the body and the system. Whereas if we eat lots of soft, stews, steamed vegetables, pumpkin soup, puddings. I told you there was a lot of puddings. I have 2 slides, 4 photos just dedicated to pudding, and I could have put a lot more. This is like a rice pudding. This is like a fruit jelly pudding. We've got like black sesame tofu pudding. We've got the pumpkin pie. Just looking at these foods, apart from wanting to eat them because they're delicious and sweet, they're very calming, soothing, creamy. You just like, if you just inhale them now, you just be like, yeah, I feel good when you eat it, like that texture, yeah, and that sweetness, natural sweetness. And that's really going to help us relax, in my opinion. I'm almost done. Yeah, so this slide I showed yesterday, for those that were here and for those who weren't here, this is just some of the earth element. I did this for all 5 elements, but some of the foods that fit under the earth element, there's a lot more, but I just picked some key ones to help you understand or recap the types of foods that we're talking about. They're there for different reasons. So the lentils are there because they actually give the spleen chi a boost, like they're blood building, nutrient building, very satisfying, and they're high in protein and all that. Great for meat eaters or vegans, doesn't matter. Nobody eats enough lentils. Red beans, chickpeas, same thing. Lots of nice, sweet, late summer vegetables, fruits as well, sorry. Apples, pears, apricots, things like that. And I mentioned yesterday kohlrabi and onions, which are very round. If you don't know what a kohlrabi is, I would assume more people in Europe know kohlrabi than most people in Australia don't know what it is. I can get it at a farmer's market and I love it. It's like a potato, very creamy, but it's round. So start to think about, round and ground vegetables. This is just a recap as well. All right, that was a bit of a marathon. It just right on time, but I know that there's questions. So I will take a few questions. I'm happy to stay on. If you'd like to stay connected, this is my website. I live and breathe food, pretty much, and the 5 elements. And I've got a really fun online session on March 6th talking about the 5 elements. We're just going to go off your birthday and do readings for people with your predominant 3 elements. I also have a online summit called Dimensions of Qi coming up in May. And I have 2 online courses, one on the 5 elements and cycles, and one on Qi boosting plant-based nutrition. So for anyone who's vegan, vegetarian, or not, just likes to enjoy plants and vegetables, that talks a lot about spleen Qi and building up the digestive fire in the body. And those are my details. You're welcome to screenshot that because I'm going to go into questions. And if you want to watch the replay, then that's available to people who join the summit, the Yin Summit, in the premium option. So would love you to do that. Okay, questions. If you have a burning question, you're welcome to unmute yourself, but let me just quickly take a few in the chat. So tofu, I'm going to just start here. So where does tofu fit in regarding taste and nourishment? Tofu is super relaxing. There's many types of tofu. I would actually put tofu because there's so much tofu in Asia. You could go around the 5 elements and put tofu in there. So smoked tofu would go in the water element or winter time, and like a raw steamed tofu up in the summertime. But in terms of taste, it's pretty neutral. It's very cooling, in a good way, nicely cooling. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it a nourishing food. It's not like a sweet potato or a brown rice or a chickpea. It's more relaxing. And then from Western nutrition, a protein source. Sabine says, what's my thought on supplements? I think these are 3 different questions. Sabine had 2 questions. So supplements are great. They have a time and a place and are good for certain people. I take different supplements if and when I need them. Food is my supplement, and I love herbal things, natural sources. So for example, vitamin C, I've long been a fan of sea buckthorn, which you can get if you're in Northern Europe. It comes from Russia and cold parts of China, as a vitamin supplement. Now I'm in Australia, I take Kakadu plum. So natural food source of vitamin C. That's just an example. But I would, also take a B multivitamin or B12 if and when I needed it. I would take iron supplements in the past. I have. But then I would also use food to supplement that. So lentils, red beans, the red dates are really good as well. So I take personally a mix, but I'm not against supplements if they're good quality and for the right person at the right time, and possibly just for a while if there's an imbalance, but I wouldn't rely on it long term. Can food change to cold to warm when you cook, when steaming? Yes, absolutely. So if you're eating a cucumber, in China, actually, just as a side note, they don't eat a lot of raw cucumbers. They actually cook them. It's really weird, but they very quickly stir fry them and then put a sauce or salt that warms it up as well. So you absolutely can. Sabine? Yana or Jana? Yes, she already tried the layering. That's fantastic. It's so simple. And I didn't mention today, but simplicity is really where it's at. It's not about overcomplicating your cooking or your food, but actually going the other way and simplifying and enjoying the flavor and the textures. The energetics of a curry. Yes, very relaxing and expansive. It goes in the fire element, not just because of the spice, but because of the flavor and the energetics of the ingredients. So it's very much I don't eat curry in winter, personally. I just don't. That for me would be the wrong energy. Interesting how even looking at the pictures makes you feel. Absolutely. And you're hungry. I'm sorry that you're hungry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. But you guys are in breakfast and lunchtime, so that's okay. I'm going to take this. Thank you. Last one from June, who has a personal question. Craving a lot of fatty foods like fish, shrimps, and salmon, avocado, coconut milk, and cheese. Absolutely. June, are you vegetarian or vegan? Can you unmute yourself if you're still here? Be quicker. You're not. Okay. If you were, I would actually suggest addressing that underlying thing. But the fact that you aren't, then go for it and eat all those foods. Your body will always tell you what it needs. Always. It is very sensitive. We usually just don't listen to it enough. So if you're craving those fat foods, it means you're missing the good fats and oils. So if you're not vegetarian or vegan, you could try some ghee, some good quality butter, avocados, absolutely. If you're living in I don't know where you are, June, but if you're living in a cold northern hemisphere place right now, I wouldn't have a lot of avocado or coconut. It's a tropical fruit, so save that for summer. That's just my opinion. Thank you. Oh, Netherlands. You got plenty of creamy, high fatty foods in the Netherlands. Plenty. I've been there many times. I actually studied macrobiotics in Amsterdam 3 summers in a row. I love it. Can I go into the lounge? Sure. I have no idea how to get there, but yeah, why not? Let's do that. I think that's it. Yay. Alina, yes. Qualities where it's at. So definitely clean, organic, pesticide free, no GMOs if you can get it. Absolutely. Definitely. All right. We're 6 minutes over, but I think that's okay because you've still got time to get to your next class. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. They're opening the lounge in a minute. Yeah, let's go there. I'll go find the link. I know it's in my email. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. It's been such a pleasure yesterday and today. And if you're watching the replay, thank you. And I'd love to stay in touch. A few people were on Instagram already yesterday, or this morning, my time. So thank you, thank you. And yeah, we'll see you soon and stay connected. Yeah, I'll go into the lounge, everyone, if you want to ask more.